everybody. This is George K with Lead Like a Boss, and we've got a great guest for you today, Marcus Sheridan. He is a renowned author, award-winning speaker, multi-entrepreneur. We're going to have a lot to learn, so buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. Marcus, welcome to the show.
George, I am happy to be here today. I think we're going to have a great conversation, my friend.
I love it. Marcus, we met about 6, 8 months ago at the B.O.S.S, the Action Coach B.O.S.S conference.
Yeah, it's a good time. Love that community, by the way, Action Coach.
Man, you were
think it's
fired
awesome.
up.
Yeah.
I loved your energy. I loved your approach. Yeah, talk to us quickly a little bit about, you were mentioning to me a little bit about your relationship with Action Coach and what you think about coaching in general. I thought we'd get that off the table and so we can move into some of your history. What are your feelings about that?
It's like I am shocked at how sometimes business owners don't have a coach. It just blows my mind when they don't, because I believe everybody should. In fact, oftentimes the highest performers have multiple coaches, because you might have like a financial coach, and then you might have like a I don't know, like a family coach or a fitness coach or something, like whatever that thing is. But I'm just a huge believer in accountability partners, and you don't want like just your spouse to be your accountability partner. That's probably not a good idea in
That
all
could be a
walks of your
recipe for
life.
disaster.
Yeah, that's probably not the best idea. And so I think everybody needs one. I have done Action Coach events all over the UK and around the US, and I continue to just be impressed every time I'm working with anybody that's an Action Coach. And like I said, I've got a few coaches myself, just a huge believer in it. So I love like that's one of your missions, George, is to help these entrepreneurs, these business owners become the best versions of themselves, right? Because we all need it.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody needs help, from the top CEO right down to the mom and pop getting off the ground. So I think we're on the same page as far as that's concerned. Tell us a little bit about your rise. I mean, I know you started. Let's talk about river pools. Let's go back to
Yeah.
river pools and talk about what happened and why you had that transformation to like maximum transparency. I think it's a lesson that a lot of entrepreneurs need to learn.
Yeah, so I started a swimming pool company with a couple friends in 2001 called River Pools. Things were going okay up until 2008. Market collapses. Looks like we're going to lose the business, file bankruptcy. What's cool about hard times is they create the best in us, right? And
Oh
they
yeah.
force us outside of our comfort zone, and they force us to do things that we otherwise might not have done. And so it was during this period of stress and worry and I'm gonna lose it all, yada yada. I started to really learn about the internet and how buyers were changing and evolving. And I just, the more I researched like content marketing, inbound marketing, social media, all that stuff, what I essentially took away from that was, okay, Marcus, world's changing. People go online, they got questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns. It's your job to address them. And if you address them better than anybody else online, through text, through video, etc., you might save your business. So I said, well, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to become the Wikipedia, in our case, of fiberglass swimming pools. And that's literally what happened. I sat down one night and brainstormed all the questions, George, I'd gotten over the years with respect to in-ground swimming pools, fiberglass pools, because that's what I was doing. I was selling in homes fiberglass pools. That's for our company. I had heard tons of questions, and so brainstormed them out, had a couple hundred, and then one by one, I started to address them on our website through text, through video. And within about 2 years, we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. Business
Wow.
just completely took off. We became a manufacturer, became a franchise. And through this whole journey, I started writing about all the things that we were doing at River Pools, which led to me having a sales and marketing coaching company, which led to They Ask You Answer the Book.
Now,
And now
hold
that
on, let
com
me pause you a second. I seem to remember there was a part in your presentation where all that transparency and all that divulging of what you guys were doing didn't make you too popular with your competition.
yeah. Well, it doesn't. You see, whenever, and I'm seeing this more today than I've ever seen it before, because George, it's getting harder to get found. The reason why, there's more content than we've ever seen. Google search isn't the same as it used to be because it's going down as AI searches are going up. And so you have to just, to build a known and trusted brand today is difficult, right? And this is why I've got that you and I talked about this new book I've got coming out. It's like, how do you, in this time period of just AI and everything that's happening with today's buyer, today's consumer, how do you become known, trusted, found online? And how do you do it in a way that's built to last? Well, you cannot follow the rules you've been given up to this
Nope.
point, and you have to be willing to disrupt, because in every industry, what we see is there's rule breakers, and the rule breakers eventually become the new leaders, and everyone else becomes the rule followers. And you just see this over and over again. And so, I didn't really realize this at the time when I started doing this thing that I called They Ask You Answer. I didn't realize I was breaking so many rules, but I was breaking a lot, George.
Oh
I was
yeah.
the I was the first company, pool company in the world to talk about cost and price on our website. Like, nobody had ever done that. I literally taught the world about it. We would go on to become the first company to have a tool where you could build and price your in-ground swimming pool on our website. Still there
I love
today.
that, by
It
the way.
crushes, man. It totally crushes. Like, stuff like that I was talking about. I was comparing different types of pools. I was talking about the competition very openly, not in a negative way, but I was just giving the facts on everything and allowing the market to decide. But the mindset was, look, if anybody has a question, we're going to address it. We're going to own this conversation. It's our fiduciary to do it. And
Okay, so what
so,
do you
yeah,
say?
it made a lot of
So
people
what do you
mad.
say to the conventional? Okay, the conventional owner says, Marcus, are you crazy, man? In my industry, we can't do that. If we do that, we'll be crushed by our competition, et cetera, et cetera. That's not how it works in our business. What do you say to that person? What do you say to that entrepreneur who is just
First off, let me just say
so
this.
afraid of that?
Every business believes they're different. And this is the great flaw that most entrepreneurs have. They see the world and then they see their business and they say, yeah, but our situation's different, our buyer's different, our sales process is different. And let me tell you, that whole we're different mindset gets you nowhere, because and listen, you do want to differentiate, yes, but this whole idea of we're special, it kills innovation. It kills creativity. Whereas if you say, listen, our buyers are like everybody else, B2B, B2C, the reason why they buy from us is the same reason why they buy from Marcus, the pool guy. It's the same reason why they hire George to be their coach. It's because they feel an emotion towards that company, towards that entity, more so than they do anybody else, and we call
You
that
mean it's
trust.
not because of the spec sheet
No,
and
it
the
is
features?
clearly, it's clearly not. It is because trust is the singular building block of all businesses. And if I said to anyone that's listening to this right now, is trust going to be fundamental to your business in 10 years, you'd say yes. 20 years, you said yes. But if I said to you, is Facebook or LinkedIn or Google going to be fundamental to your business in 20 years, you'd say, I don't know. And that's because they're platforms. Principal trust is never going to end, which is why you got to say, all right, I'm going to build my entire business model on how can we become this most known and trusted brand. That's what you got to do if you want to be built to last today. And if you want to become like this known and trusted brand, and this is what I talk about in the new book. There's essentially 4 pillars to become a known and trusted brand, George. And I know you've read They Ask You Answer, and this is like the next level up. Number one, you've got to be willing to talk about online what others, especially your competitors, are not willing to talk about. We just said an example like with cost. Number two, you got to be willing to show with video what others in your space aren't willing to show. All right.
Yep.
Number
Including
three,
yourself, right?
correct. Correct. 100%. Number three, you got to be willing to sell in a way that others aren't willing to sell. And finally, number four, and you just kind of mentioned this, you got to be more human along the way, right? You got to have a soul behind your business, especially as we have this rise of AI and technology. So talk about, show, sell, and be more human than those that are in your space. Sounds simple, but most companies don't do it, George.
Now, okay, so you just finished talking about being human, being personal, getting vulnerable with your audience, right? That's what we're talking about. But I know you're also a big proponent of AI. I know you're one of the early adopters of using AI technology. What are the what are the tips? What are the things, strategies you've seen that work with combining the two? So using the technology, using the tools, but still maintaining a personal relationship with your audience.
Well, there's a million directions that we could go in with AI. Um, sometimes people are like, Marcus, you always talk about be more human, but then you say we should be using AI. Well, they don't have to be opposed, folks. I mean, they can, perfectly coincide in terms of your strategy. And listen, I've also learned that we can't allow personal opinions to script smart business decisions. I see it. I know you see this a lot as a coach, George. People will say to you, "Oh, that's not my thing." Well, it doesn't matter if it's your thing. You became a business owner, so now you have to get over that. Right?
Not
So
about you.
it's like a business owner saying, I mean, just, financials, accounting, it's just not my thing. Well, that's fine, but it better become your thing. Otherwise, you're going to have the rug pulled out from underneath you one of these days. And you're going to be in big, big trouble. That's just how it works in business.
Yep.
So, in the context of using AI, there's ways that we can use it for sales, ways that we can use it for marketing, but just in terms of what we just described, like if you went to AI right now and you said, I want you're an expert in Marcus Sheridan's They Ask You Answer framework. I want you to do a brainstorm of his big five that you read about and They Ask You Answer, the five subjects that every buyer wants to know, but businesses don't want to talk about. I want, and by the way, those are cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, and best. Those are the big five. Um, I want you to research those five. I want you to come up with, 50 potential questions that people are asking in our space that they would search for online that are related to those five things that are mentioned in Marcus Sheridan's They Ask You Answer, you're going to get an incredible, like, you know, answers for your space, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I used to do content brainstorms with teams. I quickly found out that the reality is that AI can do it much better, much more thorough, and it
And
can
it
do,
records everything perfectly.
yeah, I mean, it just does it so stinking well. Then you can use it to create the content. Of course, in the process of creating content, the whole key to creating content, especially take written content, for example, if you're going to use AI for that, you got to learn how to, of course, use it, how to prompt it to talk in your voice, to write in your voice. But you also have to always be the final editor of anything that AI helps you with. I mean, if you're not changing the beginning, if you're not changing the end, if you're not changing some of the elements, if you wouldn't say it that way, then it shouldn't be written that way on your website. So that's just one thing that you want to keep in mind. But I think it's amazing for, producing content. I think it's really amazing for, and not to digress too much here, George, but I use it every single day with any sales call that me and my team does. We do a call recording. Of course, we use like, there's a million AI call summarizers at this point, but you can take those transcripts and summaries and you can put that into AI and ask it to present based on the conversation, a pitch deck for you, that just makes you incredibly fast to get back to folks with a proposal. There's so many things it can do. Again, you got to have the final edit on all these things, but I'm a huge proponent of getting in the sandbox right now. Again, that's your fiduciary as a business owner. When you said, I want to get into business, you said, I need to meet the market where the market is. Well, the market is and will be and forevermore driven by artificial intelligence, whether we like it or not. This is where the world is headed. And so we have to really become familiar with it. And it's going to be imperative. Otherwise, it's not cliche. You really will be left behind.
Yeah, it's like saying, "Oh, I don't know about this electricity thing. I mean, working till the sun goes down. It's okay."
Yeah, it's just never proven well for people to be resistors of the rising tides because, you've all been at the beach before. You're sitting there with your lounge chair, tide starts to come up. You're like, man, am I going to have to move? Yes, yes, you are. You always end up moving or you get cooped and you're going to get wet, right? That's how it works in business.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't, it's interesting to me, George. There's really two types of people that look at trends. The first one says, "Oh, I wish we had the good old days." Second type of person says that's an opportunity there. Like let me give you one that's a major trend. 75% of all buyers, and I talk about this in Endless Customers a lot. 75% of all buyers say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience,
Yep.
right? So you can sit there and say, "Yeah, but I just want to have everything face to face," right? But that's not what you want as a buyer. That's what you wish you could have as the seller. But you as a buyer, that's not what you want. What you want is control. You want to talk to a salesperson when you are ready, when you are comfortable, right? So these are things that you can't fight against if you're going to stay ahead of the marketplace.
Yeah, and when people I get that kind of resistance from people, I say, have you ever shopped on Amazon? Of course, the answer is yes. Of course, I have. Did you need to speak to a salesperson before you made a purchase? Might have bought a $3,000 computer. It's for some people that's a major purchase. You didn't need to speak to a buyer. You had all the details. You did your comparison. You became a knowledgeable buyer, and then you had enough confidence to press the button and place the order.
You know what's amazing about Amazon? It comes right back to the ask you answer. Remember the big five we just talked about: cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, and best. If
They
you
have
go
them
to
all.
if you go to an Amazon product page, what's there? Talks you Tells you all about costs, and it talks about other like products and potential like costs for those.
Mm-hmm.
Problems. You read reviews, and you can learn the good, the bad, and the ugly by reading the reviews.
And
Reviews are there, of
Amazon will
course.
even throw in stuff. It'll say there's a new product at a new price, or
That's
they've
right. It'll
upgraded
show you
it, or they'll throw it right
comparisons.
in there.
It'll give you like other products that people purchase, comparisons. Like it gives you literally everything you need to make a decision. Traditionally, these are questions that back in the day you might have asked a salesperson. Back in the day, you might have said, "Well, how does this compare to some of the other products in the market?" And what's the good, the bad, and the ugly? What do I need to be aware of? But you see, you've got that information at your fingertip today.
Yeah.
And Amazon really understands buyer psychology. And so that's why they're more transparent than arguably anybody in the world. If you're going to be on their site, you got to play by their rules. Otherwise, you're going to lose.
Oh
Right. And
yeah.
that's really, really powerful. And they're a perfect example.
Yeah. I love it. So okay. So let's talk about the stress and anxiety of being an owner. You went through the crash in 2008. You decided not to bury your head in the sand and not to ride it out. You were going to take the bull by the horns and try to make the most of it. Let's say you're talking to, a younger version of Marcus getting started today. Arguably people can say that, it's a tough environment today, tough marketplace, blah, blah, blah. As far as I'm concerned, it's always tough. It's never been easy, I don't think. But what would you say to someone who's like young, getting started? Maybe they're a family person. How do you balance the anxiety, the stress of building a business, but still keeping your sanity and keeping your family together, for example? Because you're a family man, and I get the impression from you that family is important.
Well, you know, family far and away is the most important component of my life. And being an entrepreneur is not necessarily the easiest route to take if you want to have necessarily all the time that you want to give
I don't get to
to,
make my own hours when I'm an entrepreneur. Like,
yeah, well,
really?
it's like I quickly learned when I became a business owner that weekends didn't mean anything to me. It was every day was pretty similar in that, I was engaged mentally. I didn't check out. You don't check out, you see? It's like, you don't check out. Now,
No punch clock.
no, yeah, you don't punch a clock and say, I'm done for the day. Um, now it's there's a great phrase that says wherever you are, be there, right?
Mm,
And so that is one of the great challenges of life in general, whether we're talking about entrepreneurism or not. A lot of people, we've got all these devices that are supposed to connect us. We have the most disconnected society we've, really ever seen. That's why we have,
almost ever, yeah.
so many, mental health issues and all this stuff that's going on out there. Thing I would say is, I'm a full-time professional speaker today. Got all these, like 6 different companies that I own, and I'm away 75 to 100 nights a year, roughly. But
Wow.
when I'm home, and I am home, and we take trips as a family often, and I designed a lifestyle that would allow me to see my kids and them to see me. For example, I homeschool my kids. Why?
Mm,
Because I don't want my kids to be tied to anything. Therefore, we can get up and we can go whenever.
I love
So,
it.
for example, all of my kids, I got 4 kids, and they're getting older now. 2 of them are already married, but
God
they
bless.
they
Wow.
they travel with me all over the world. They've seen the world with their dad. I once um I discovered something really interesting after I started taking my kids on trips, and that is I could really measure in many ways the efficacy of my relationship with my child based on how many inside jokes I had with each one of my children. So you think about
That's
that,
pretty
George,
cool.
right? The only way you get an inside joke with someone is if you and that person had an experience that was very specific to you. So,
Yep.
for example, my oldest daughter, today she's 24 years old. 10 years ago, when she was 14, she started traveling with me. And during this time period, I was doing a lot of international gigs. And we went all over Europe. We went around Africa. I mean, I was just doing speaking everywhere. And to when we got back, we had so many little isms that were ours. And it would drive my wife crazy. She's like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean by that?" Right? These were our inside jokes. We still have those inside jokes 10 years later. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've built
Oh
those
yeah.
with each one of my kids. You know, people say to me all the time, even speakers, they'll say to me, man, I wish I could have done that like you did. I'm like, you chose that I wanted my kids to be completely married to the school system, which is fine, by the way, but that is what you chose. And you chose that you wanted them married to sports on weekends. I did not choose those two things. I chose a lifestyle very intentionally where we could get up and go wherever the heck we wanted when we want. By the way, in my house, this is sorry for the rant here, George, but in my house, and by the way, I'm not saying my way is better.
It
This
works
is
for
just my
you.
way.
It works for you.
We go on these trips for weeks at a time throughout the year with the family. We don't call them vacations.
Mm.
Not allowed to call them vacations because
Mm.
we're not trying to vacate anything. We're not trying
Right.
to leave anything.
Right.
We don't need a break from our lives. And so we call them trips, going on a trip,
Mhm.
going on a trip. And that's
And
why
I'm
I like
sure if you're going on a trip for a few weeks, the kids are still got to do their schoolwork, right? They can't
they
just forget
they
about their
continue to do
schoolwork.
stuff. They continue to go, baby. It's
Yeah.
just like we just integrate it all together because it's very, very easy to get to a point where you're just like, there's no way we could do that because.
Mm.
Right? But I am just not interested in that lifestyle. That fits certain people, but it didn't fit me, certainly didn't fit my kids. But I would tell you, you know, I've got an extraordinary relationship with each one of my children. There is no animus in my house. There's no animus between my kids. As teenagers, we you don't see fighting in my home, dude. You just don't.
Mm.
You literally don't see it.
Yeah,
And
but I think
you
you've
know,
purposefully, you know, a lot of the gripes, complaints, uh, resentments that you see with young people with their parents that are entrepreneurs is they're never around. They're not around. And even when they are around, they're not present. And the life you designed, and I love that term, you designed it, you chose it. I'm sure you had a lot of consultation with your wife with regards to how to do this, because I'm sure it wasn't easy in the beginning. And I'm sure there's a lot of people were saying, oh, you can't do this, or it's not good for the kids, or blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you got a lot of that stuff, but you guys purposely put this in place, and it eliminates a lot of the struggles and the challenges. I grew up, my father's an entrepreneur. I'm a third generation entrepreneur, so I know. I mean, wake up in the morning, dad's gone. Go to bed at night, dad's not home yet. I mean, that was a constant,
mhm.
regular thing, and that resentment doesn't go away. It's there, and if you purposely can build a system that just wipes that all out, that solves a lot of the problems that people who want to be entrepreneurs don't take the step because they think that they're going to miss their kids' childhoods or whatever. And I think what you just
Yeah.
finished saying proves that that's not doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah, I'm not one. I rage a bit against the machine in all walks of life, right? So we're talking about you have to be contrarian to be a great marketer, to build a great brand today. When I see the whole world marching in the same direction, I'm like, something's wrong here, right? I just don't believe in conveyor belts as a whole. I think they
Mm-hmm.
were really, really great for the, automotive industry, but it's not great for my lifestyle, nor for my kids' lifestyle. And so we're going to create a life that fits us. I think everybody should do that. But that's why we become entrepreneurs, because we're control freaks. Fundamentally,
Mm.
that's why we become entrepreneurs,
Yep.
because we
Control
want to
freaks and
dictate
rebels.
our future. That's right.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So I love this. I think a lot of people can benefit from some of this stuff. I think, being authentic, but still leveraging the tools, leveraging whatever's hot, whatever's out there, whatever's efficient. A lot of test and measure. At Action Coach, we talk a lot about testing and measuring. You do a lot about that. You talk about it, in your book. And I think that that's important. And you're actually doing it in your life. So you're walking the talk. I think that's amazing. Now that you are, what version of the book are you? Three. This is the third version of the
This
book.
version 3 of They Ask You Answer. It's crazy, man. It continues to do well because it's
And the
very
first one was
evergreen.
what,
The principles. 2017.
2017 or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing. So what's new? What's different about this? So why, after I've read, the first, well, this isn't the first one. This was maybe a year ago.
Yeah, it's the second one.
Second one. Okay. So why do I need to read the third one?
Well, we've got some major shifts that are happening in the marketplace. Obviously, AI.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got this content proliferation that's happening. But AI and people using AI more and more every day to find what they're looking for means that we've got this zero-click phenomena that's happening, which is I don't have to click on a blue link on a thing called Google in order to get the answer that I'm looking for. What that means as a second, third order effects is that websites all over the world will start to get less and less traffic. As people get less and less traffic all over the world because SEO has completely changed, well, then how do I still get known? How do I get found? How do I earn trust? Well, to do this, you have to be in more places. When I started with River Pools doing They Ask You Answer, I could just put all this great content on my website and we crushed and we became, like I said, the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. I couldn't do that
probably
today.
the most trusted swimming pool site in the world.
And trusted. Oh yeah, both of them. But I couldn't do that today and get the same results.
No, not with the same tools.
No,
not with the same techniques. Yeah.
We're gonna have to go beyond that. So going beyond that means is like, okay, I need to start to see myself as a media company. My company as a media company. How does a media company go about things? Well, we say things like, all right, everything we do, we need to show. We need to show it with video, and we need to leverage these different platforms that are out there so as to show this thing even better. So in other words, you got to take your YouTube very seriously.
Yep.
You got to, depending on the industry, but you should probably be doing the things like the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the TikToks, potentially. Oh, no, by the way, our opinions on TikTok don't matter here. They don't matter because what matters is where's our customer, right? Where's our customer? So, a media company is constantly telling a better story, showing a better story than everyone else. And so it's putting it out there for the world. Do you have, I know everybody's got different size organization, but
yeah,
most companies today should have a full-time videographer on staff. If they're doing more than a couple $1 million in revenue a year, you should have a full-time videographer on staff. If you want to keep up from a brand perspective, if you want to tell and show your story like you can and should, most folks aren't thinking like that though, George. That's problematic. So, we push that, quite hard. I talk a lot too in the book about that stat that I shared with you earlier about the 75% of all buyers say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. And what that means is we're going to have what's essentially a self-service explosion online. So
yeah, they don't want an information-free. They don't want an interaction-free. They just don't want to be sold.
Yeah. So how this
they
works
want to buy,
basically
but they don't want to sell, right?
Classic example is this. If you're going to any home improvement site, let's say it's for painting, or let's say it's for construction or lawn care or landscaping or siding or patio, whatever. Perfect case in point. You have your questions, but one of your primary questions is, just give me a sense. How much am I going to spend? And you see, what's really interesting is when the buyer journey starts, this is one of the first primary questions. It's just like, I just want to know, am I in the game or not? Is this even possible or not from a financial perspective?
Yeah.
Well, my prediction is within the next 5 years, all home improvement, 90% of all home improvement businesses are going to be forced to have a pricing estimator tool on their website.
Oh yeah, I can see bots walking visitors right through the whole process.
Oh yeah, and you're not. It's not going to be an option, folks, because it's going to be table stakes. It's going to be expected of you. Just like a lot of folks at one time in the year 2000 said, "I don't think I'm going to need a website." They all backtracked on that. Like it's always backtracking, and so you're going to backtrack if you say, I don't need to do video. You're going to have to do video, and I don't need to do a pricing estimator. I actually developed one of these. I'm so passionate about this, and I see the impact. So I developed a tool called priceguide.ai, and allows any business, but especially home improvement companies, because they're so easy to do. It uses AI. It allows you very quickly, in less than 30 minutes, to put a working pricing estimator on your website. And what we see, George, is so cool. The companies that do this the right way and they show it the right way in their website, on average, see a 3x lift in leads. It's that simple.
Yep.
And you could be an accounting company. I mean, there's all types of, like, you could be a payroll company, whatever. But when you have a pricing estimator on your site, it gets used. And it gets used early in the buyer's journey. They understand that they're in the game or not, right? It allows them to do further research. And one thing that people really hate is call for quote today. It just pisses them off. It's the middle finger of the internet. And so this is your means of overcoming this frustration that you've experienced, we've all experienced before, when we're forced to call for quote or fill the form out for any pricing information. That just pisses
And give all
you
my
off.
information and give me my cell phone number and allow you to bug me when I don't want to
Yeah,
be bugged and all that good stuff.
drives you
Yeah,
nuts.
I hear
Drives you
you.
nuts.
And I think the other thing that a lot of people need to understand, like I worked with a client and I helped them do something very similar to what you're talking about. And when we looked at the stats, when we looked at the information, we saw that people were logging in at the craziest hours. They were logging in the middle of the night. They were logging in early in the morning. They were logging in on the weekends, all the times where you don't have staff available to take a call.
Right.
And
Right.
and people were doing all this homework on their own time. And then come Monday morning, they would just call in and say, okay, I'm ready to do this, or I'm ready to do that, or I'd like more
Correct.
information about this. I'd like more information about that.
We all want it on our terms. The thing that I've experimented with, George. I think I mentioned it at the Action Coach event, but so my company Impact will build some of these self-service tools. One of them that we've worked with is self-scheduling tools, and that's basically when you can schedule time with a salesperson without being forced to talk to a human first. Now, that in and of itself is a good user experience, but here's where it gets crazy, is what we've seen with our experiments. When a consumer or buyer is allowed to choose who their salesperson is,
Mm,
the closing rates double.
I love that.
Imagine, like, let me give you an example. Imagine if somebody had like this large action coach organization. They had like 10 coaches that work for them on staff. So a company comes in and is looking at all their different coaches. They get to read the bios, they get to watch videos about them, and then they're able to schedule a time with a specific coach that resonated with them most. You see, in the process of this, what people don't understand is this is all sunk cost fallacy. So because you're spending time interacting, learning about, investing in a particular person, you are looking for reasons now to work with that person.
Yeah,
This is why closing
absolutely.
rates double. It's really, really profound. It's quite extraordinary.
It's funny when you were talking about that, it made me think of, in the old days when the internet was just coming online and e-commerce just coming online, you had that phenomenon called showrooming, where people would go into retail stores and they would shop for something and then they would go online and see, if they can find it online cheaper or whatever. And retailers hated that. They said, oh, it's terrible. And I would say, listen, you've got the person in your store and you are not converting them. You're letting a phone convert a client
Hmm.
that you've got in your store. Is that the internet's fault, or is that your fault for not having a better sales approach?
That's exactly right. Once again, it doesn't help to argue as the tide is coming in. It's
Yeah,
going
exactly.
to come in.
Yeah. And now we've got retailers now putting QR codes in their stores saying, you want more information about this product? Just
Yeah,
scan the QR
look
code
at it
and
right
go to
now.
our website and you're going to have all the information you want. Oh, don't want to take it home with you? Want to deliver it? Just click the button and we'll have it delivered to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Took
Yep.
them 20 years to catch up, but you know,
Nonetheless,
now they're doing it
finally they're catching up. Yep.
and it's working. So yeah, you don't have to fight the tide. I agree. You gotta take it by the hand and
But George, going back to that, it's like these were the ones that did this originally, they broke rules, man.
oh yeah.
And this is why, like, if you're not getting complaints from your competitors, you're probably not pushing the envelope hard enough here, right? Like, this is how you have to be thinking. I remember when we started manufacturing pools, I produced a series of 8 videos that were about 10 minutes long each. So it's like 80 minutes worth of videos showing our entire manufacturing process, like how we build our pools. No manufacturer had done
Like
such detail,
behind
not
the
even
curtain.
close. Behind the curtain, man. I mean, literally, if you wanted to start your own fiberglass pool construction company where you were building, like manufacturing these things, you could have like watched this video, like, oh, they showed me how to do it. Competitors said we were crazy. And what happened as a result, though, is that homeowners around the country were watching these videos and saying they're the only ones that are showing us exactly how they make it. And then they would go to these builders, these pool builders, these dealers, and they would say, do you sell river pools? Because if you don't, I don't want to work with you. I only want a river. So I'm getting calls at the factory saying from pool builders, dealers that are saying, yeah, I got somebody that says the only way they're going to work with me is if it's a river pool. How can I become a dealer?
They
So
must
we
have they
we
must have loved
exploded.
slash hated that,
They
right?
hated it. But we exploded without any sales reps because the consumer, the end user, was our best sales rep possible.
Okay, you know that brings me to something else. I know we're going a little long here, but I think this is really great value. People talk about the cost of advertising. They talk cost for clicks and all this stuff, and if they're going to trade shows and they're doing trade journals and all that stuff, and you tell them, look, you're spending all this money on this stuff, but you're not willing to hire a videographer for 50, 60K a year that could get you maybe 10 times the amount
Yeah.
of exposure
Yep.
that you're getting out of going to a trade show and seeing the same old people over and over and over again. How do you convince somebody with that mindset to understand that you're what you think is a waste of money is the completely opposite. It's completely the opposite. They're happy to spend, let's say, $50,000 to go to a trade show and get 0 leads, but they won't like pay for a videographer. They won't do like 10 or 15 videos a quarter, for example, to talk to their clients about, or their prospective clients about, their product.
Well, there's a reason why most businesses fail, right? And sadly, you can't fix stupid either.
Mm,
But what you can do, and this is, of course, what I try to do is I try to get people to look in the mirror. When I speak, I really am really just it's like all these things I'm doing, I'm just forcing them to look in the mirror and say, oh, geez, that is kind of how I do it. And that's how I would want it. And yes, that is what I would expect to experience. And okay, if I believe in the golden rule, I should probably do this myself, right? It's like that's the idea. And so,
yeah.
we get people to think about these things. And once they think about it, because I have people all the time say, there's no way I could talk about cost and price on my website. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, that's what you believe. Let's look at why, right? You say that. And they'll say, well, because every job is different. And I'll say, okay, so is it possible that you explain what drives costs up and what drives costs down for your product or service? Well, yeah, I could do that. And could you explain why some companies are cheap and why some companies are expensive? Yeah, I could do that. Could you give just a very generic range as to what your average customer spends if you wanted to? Yeah, I could do that. All right, you just explained why it depends. That's what we're talking about here, right? But yet they're so caught up in this idea that I can't give the exact thing that they're saying I can't do the thing at all. And no, you can. That's why I really, you
It's
know,
not a quote. They're not giving them a quote. You're giving them a price guideline. You're not providing a
correct.
quote.
That's why the book's titled, the original book is They Ask You Answer, but really the right title or the strategy is They Ask and you address it as well as you possibly can.
That's a long title.
That's right. But that's not a good title, right? So you want to be in every conversation. You
Yeah.
don't want you don't because I'll say to folks, so would you because they're like, I can't address that. Okay, would you rather them learn from you or somebody else? Well, I'd rather
Mm.
them learn from me. Okay, well, if you'd rather them learn from you, well, then we have a choice. We can either address this or we can ignore it. Which would you prefer? And usually they end up saying, Daggone it, I hate this, Marcus. You're right. I am the one that needs to address this. I want them learning from me.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think the walking the talk. I mean, you tried all of this stuff. You tried all of these things in your business, and you saw a lot of success. So obviously, you have a lot of confidence when you recommend it to other people, to your clients. And I think one of the things that a lot of people, maybe some of the older generation, can understand is like, listen, try it, try it, see how it works, give it a shot. Like, throw a little bit of money out of budget, try it, but test it,
Mhm.
understand it, know your numbers, like see where the ROI is coming from. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially smaller ones, have a challenge with tracking the ROI of their marketing. And I think that scares a lot of them.
It is tough, and it's actually getting tougher. It's not getting easier. That's getting tougher, right? Um, because if somebody sees you on a YouTube and then, they see you on some other video and then they eventually, reach out through your website, right? How they find you?
Yeah,
Well, they
yeah,
found you through YouTube. It's like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. It's like, finding your company. It can be difficult, but that's what it takes to build a known and trusted brand today. You can't be just on one singular platform. You've got to be on, in most cases, reality is it's not easy, but you got to be on multiple. But again, you got to be talking about things that others aren't talking about and showing what others aren't willing to show as you're doing
yeah.
this.
And look, I mean, is it really so much different than the old days when you had a magazine ad, or you had a billboard ad, or you had a radio ad? Those things were hard to track too. I mean, those things were really hard to
Yeah.
track,
And they're
but we did
expensive
it.
as crap.
Oh yeah.
And, most of us lost our tail on those. I can attest to that, very,
Yeah.
very clearly. I was so happy the day the Yellow Pages went out of business because I said, serves you right, devil. That's what they deserved. Anyway, that's a tangent.
So Marcus, as we wrap up, talk to us about where is the best place for us to engage with you. Like, where do you want people to go to learn about you, about how you help the market, how you educate?
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, a good place to connect with me just generally, so we always follow each other. You can follow my stuff is on LinkedIn because I'm a slayer on LinkedIn. And so check me out there.
50,000 plus followers, or
Yeah, well
wow.
earned too, not free. And in terms of the book, go to endlesscustomers.com to order the book because if you pre-order the book, there's a bunch of just specials, freebies, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff that you get with pre-ordering the book. So everybody, make sure you pre-order the book. You're gonna love it. You're gonna see it's super applicable. It doesn't come out until the first week of April, but you could still now get endless customers and start the process. Excuse me, you can get they ask you answers, start the process, and then follow it up with endless customers. It's not gonna be a waste of your time. I promise you that. And
I'm sure it won't be.
yeah, and for those listening, hey, I speak on this all over the world, and so if you're interested in hearing more about this at an event or your company, as long as your audience is willing to be engaged and moved, because that's what's going to happen if I come, they're
I'll
going to
tell
be
you guys, I'll tell you
engaged.
folks. I mean, I was at one of Marcus's events with Action Coach, and I tell you, no one, everybody was engaged. I mean, you had us all going. I mean, he's down in the pits with everybody, and he's running up to people, and he's talking to people, and he's engaging, he's asking questions that sometimes could get prickly. I mean, there was a few times. I mean, nothing's scripted, and
That's
so
right.
yeah, I love the fact that you engage head on with everybody in the audience, and you gave a lot of value, but it was extremely entertaining, and that's really a tough trick.
Cool. I appreciate that, man. That's what it's all about. But, you have to be willing to be different. Sally Hogshead says, different is better than better. And there's so much to that, right? I don't want to be like every other speaker, and I don't want my marketing to be like everybody else's marketing in my space. I don't want my website to be like everybody else's website. I don't want my sales process to be like everybody else's. I do really truly want it to be different, and I want all my competitors to say, "Yeah, there's no way we would do what Marcus over there is doing." So if you're listening to this, hopefully you're in the same boat and you can say that you truly are talking about showing and selling in a way that no one else is in your space.
I love it. And there is a customer for everyone. This idea that, you've got to, if you can get 2% or 1% of the global market in whatever it is that you do, I'm sure you'll do great.
Oh yeah, you got your tribe. Just lean into who you are. You'll find your tribe. Trust me.
I love it.
I mean, like 1-2% of my audiences say he yelled at me. I've already let them go, man. I'm totally fine that people say he yelled at me because the other 97% are like, that dude was baller and I loved him.
Yeah. And I'm one of them. So thank you so much, Marcus. This has been amazing. I can't wait to maybe have you back on in a little while and talk about endless customers and the success of that, and see how we can shake up the community a little bit more and for the better. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for being on the show, brother.
You're welcome, George.